Seoul's skyline reflects decades of progress, but beneath the surface, a quiet crisis is growing. South Korea is running out of babies, and this is creating a problem for its military. The country now has the lowest birth rate in the world. Fewer children are born each year, shrinking the pool of young men available for mandatory military service. For a nation still technically at war with its northern neighbor, this is a serious concern. The military, once a cornerstone of national identity, is facing a future with far fewer soldiers. Officials are asking, how can a nation defend itself without enough people to fill the uniforms? The effects are already being felt. Nurseries and schoolyards are quieter, and the military is feeling the strain. The government must find new ways to maintain a strong defense as the population shrinks. This challenge is forcing a re-evaluation of military structure, technology, and the role of women in the armed forces. The reasons for the low birth rate are complex high living costs, intense competition, and changing social attitudes. Young people feel they can't afford children and face immense pressure to succeed. These social and economic issues have direct military consequences. The defense of the nation now depends on choices made in households across the country. The future of Seoul's security is tied not just to military hardware, but to the number of cradles being filled each year. The silent threat of a low birth rate has become one of South Korea's most significant national security issues. The clock is ticking, and the stakes are higher than ever. To grasp South Korea's crisis, we need to understand the fertility rate, the average number of children a woman is expected to have. For a population to remain stable, the rate must be about 2.1. South Korea's fertility rate has plummeted to a record low, 0.72. This is the lowest ever recorded for any country. At this rate, the population could halve in a single generation, a demographic collapse. The military's strength is directly tied to the size of its young population. In South Korea, all able-bodied men must serve, so the number of recruits depends on births from 2 decades earlier. With such a low fertility rate, the number of potential soldiers in the 2040s will be drastically smaller. The military's structure is based on manpower assumptions that no longer hold. The consequences are already here. The number of eligible draftees has been falling for years. The government's target of 500,000 troops is becoming harder to achieve. The low fertility rate is a mathematical certainty military planners can't ignore. It limits the human resources available for national defense. South Korea faces a future where its military may have advanced equipment, but not enough people to use it. The demographic crisis is no longer a distant threat. It's a present reality. South Korea faces a demographic cliff, a sudden steep drop in the number of young people. The population is becoming top-heavy, with more retirees and fewer youth. This means a smaller workforce, strained pensions, and emptier schools. For the military, the impact is immediate: fewer young, fit recruits for frontline service. In the early 2000s, about 350,000 young men were available for conscription each year. By the late 2030s, it could fall below 150,000. The military's reliance on a large ground force is no longer sustainable. Planners see the cliff approaching, but there's little they can do in the short term. The soldiers of 2045 should be born today, but with low birth rates, they simply won't exist in needed numbers. This forces a painful re-evaluation of defense strategy. The assumption of plentiful conscripts is gone. The military must adapt or risk irrelevance. The demographic cliff isn't just a statistic. It's reshaping the future of South Korea's military. The country must prepare to defend itself with a much smaller army. The challenge is existential and urgent. The demographic cliff has triggered a severe manpower crisis for South Korea's military. The mass conscription model depends on a steady flow of young men, but that flow is drying up. Maintaining a 500,000 strong army is now unsustainable. The army, most reliant on conscripts, is hit hardest. Frontline units are increasingly undermanned. The Navy and Air Force also struggle to find skilled personnel for advanced equipment. The military is merging or disbanding units and shortening service terms, but these are only temporary fixes. Shorter service means less time to develop skills, affecting readiness. As the pool of recruits shrinks, standards may be lowered, risking a less capable force. Morale suffers as soldiers are overworked in understaffed units. The crisis threatens not just the size, but the effectiveness and well-being of the military. Hollow divisions, units that exist on paper but lack real strength, are becoming a reality. The thinning ranks are a symptom of a much deeper national problem. Recruitment shortfalls are no longer a projection, they're happening now. Military bases are emptier and some are closing due to a lack of soldiers. The number of active duty troops has dropped from over 600,000 to a target of 500,000, but even that's hard to meet. The number of men turning 20, the prime age for conscription, is expected to fall by nearly 40% between 2020 and 2035. Without major changes, the military may shrink to 400,000 or fewer. Non-commissioned and junior officer roles are especially hard to fill, as young people choose private sector jobs over the military. This creates a shortage of experienced leaders, critical for combat effectiveness. Units operate with fewer personnel, increasing workloads and risking operational failures. The empty barracks are a growing vulnerability in South Korea's defense. The country's military strength is eroding, one empty bed at a time. South Korea isn't alone. Many developed nations face similar military challenges, from low birth rates. Japan, Germany, and Italy are also grappling with aging populations and shrinking youth. Japan relies on volunteers and has raised the maximum age for recruits, investing in automation to offset shortages. Germany, after ending conscription, now struggles to attract enough recruits and has considered recruiting from other EU countries. These countries show the difficulties of maintaining a strong military in aging societies. But South Korea's situation is more urgent. It faces a direct threat from North Korea's massive army. Unlike others, it can't afford to downsize its military. Maintaining a large conventional force is a matter of survival. The demographic problem is a potential crisis, not just a challenge. South Korea is in a race against a demographic clock with high stakes. The government is fighting on two fronts, boosting births and adapting the military. Billions have been spent on cash subsidies, childcare and housing benefits, but the birth rate keeps falling. Young Koreans say these policies don't address deeper issues like job competition, long hours and high costs. As a result, the government is focusing more on military adaptation. Defense Reform 4.0 aims to create a smaller, smarter and stronger military. The plan invests in AI, drones, robotics and advanced surveillance to offset declining manpower. The army is being reorganized to be more agile and technology-focused. There's a push to expand the role of women and use more civilians for support roles. The goal: free up soldiers for combat and make the most of limited manpower. These changes are urgent as the manpower shortage grows. The government is racing to implement reforms before the crisis deepens. South Korea must consider radical solutions to its defense dilemma. Female conscription is now part of the national conversation, though it faces strong opposition. Expanding and modernizing the reserve force is another option, but it requires investment in training and equipment. The most promising path is a technology-centric military, fully integrated with AI and networked systems. Soldiers would become commanders and tech specialists, overseeing autonomous systems. Training must shift to produce these highly skilled techno-soldiers. The future likely lies in a hybrid model, a smaller professional high-tech force supported by a strong reserve and more women and civilian specialists. South Korea must make tough choices about which capabilities to prioritize. The search for solutions is a national imperative. The country's security depends on bold, innovative change. South Korea stands at a crossroads. Its demographic crisis is a threat that can't be fought with tanks or missiles. The shrinking youth population is weakening the military's ability to deter aggression. Government efforts to boost births and reform the military are a race against time. Technology is crucial, but it can't fully replace human soldiers. The nation must debate its military's future, expanding women's roles, reforming reserves, and rethinking conscription. South Korea must move toward a modern, agile, tech-driven defense. The transformation will be difficult, but a weakened military is not an option. A nation's strength is built on its people. Without a new generation, the future is uncertain. The choices made now will determine whether Seoul's walls stand strong for generations to come.